Well, hello and welcome to our show, another Takeoff Monday. Today, we're going to be talking about podcasting for your business. I'm Rosanna Catalano, and joining me, of course, is...
Hi, I'm Tootle.
Hi, Joy. If you're not familiar, Joy and I produce the Floridaville, a podcast here in Florida where we interview Florida business leaders and government officials and those that are just doing wonderful things here in Florida, and we get their life story on tape. So welcome to our show today. We also have joining us Chrissy Souders to take your questions about podcasting. Hi, Chrissy.
Hey, Rosanna. Hey, Joy. Yes,
Hi.
Please engage with us. Then we'll go ahead and get those questions to Rosanna and Joy, and also your comments as well, too.
Excellent. Well, let's just jump right in. We have a lot to cover in a very short amount of time. Let's first talk about statistics with podcasting and why it makes sense for your business. Did you know that 51% of the population has listened to a podcast? That's up from 44% in 2018. So those numbers just keep increasing. 45% of podcast listeners have a household income of over $75,000. That number in the total population is 35,000. And in terms of genres for podcasts, the most popular genres are comedy, news, culture, sports, and true crime. Those are the most popular genres that we're seeing. Some other things you should know about podcast listeners are that they're more active on social media channels, and they're more likely to follow your company and their brands. So basically, podcast listeners are loyal, affluent, and educated. And if you want to hear some more podcast statistics, you can check them out on our blog, which is available at rocketshipconsultants.com/takeoff Monday. There's many, many more statistics that are vital to know about podcasting with regards to your business.
Before you start a podcast, there are some important considerations. First, you want to ask yourself, what do I hope to achieve from a podcast? And before you even choose a topic for your podcast, ask yourself, why should my business invest time and money into making a podcast? Some examples of podcast topics a business might consider, depending on the type of business you have, are answering your customers' frequently asked questions, establishing your brand as a thought leader, driving traffic to your website, entertaining your audience, or monetizing through ads. Whatever direction you decide you want to go in, make sure you pick a topic for your podcast that strategically aligns with your business goals. Ask yourself, who is your target audience? Think about who you're trying to reach. What topics will get your audience's attention? Pick a topic that you're passionate about. A great podcast content will come naturally if your podcast focuses on something that truly interests you. Your topic should be interesting enough for you to speak about it in different ways and over time as you build multiple episodes for your podcast. Just make sure your topic is also relevant to your target audience and fits your business goals. After these considerations, you might end up choosing a topic different from what you originally planned. Rather than focusing on the product you sell, it might be more effective to discuss the experiences or events that you can do with your product. For example, if you were in the pizza business, a topic might be 5 quick ways to turn pizza into a picnic, or pizza around the world.
And let's talk about your podcast show design, some things that you should consider. You should consider the length of your show. Is it going to be a short show like we have here for our Takeoff Monday, or is it going to be a longer format where you're going to really dive into the issues? You'll also want to think about your guest speakers and how often you want to publish your show. You should also think about your cover art. While we always say don't judge a book by its cover, in the podcasting world, you will be judged by your cover art. So really take that into consideration when you're designing it. Your design should be 1400 by 1400 pixels for your podcast because that's what they use for iTunes. And podcast listeners look at the little picture, believe it or not, and judge whether they want to listen to the show. You also want to give some consideration to the intro the introduction to your show and what we call it the intro and the outro to your show? Do you want to have music? If so, you want to make sure that there are no copyright issues and really own the license to that music. You also want to debate whether you are going to use your own voice to do the introduction to your show, or perhaps have a voiceover, a professional voiceover for that. You also want to give some consideration to your trailer. What is it that you want to tell listeners in a short way that will entice them to listen to a full episode of your show? Those are the things that you really need to think about when you're designing your show. And you can see here on the up on your screen how our cover art for the Floridaville looks. It's that palm tree and those really Miami Vice colors that we thought would pop and get folks' attention. Also, let's talk about your equipment. There are just a few things that you need for a podcast, and that's a microphone, a headset, recording software that also edits. You're also going to want a backup recorder. Trust me, I have stories. You definitely want a backup recorder. And one of the things that I don't have on this list, and I'll make this a blog post later that you can check out, is good cables. Believe it or not, cables can cause all kinds of little noises and disturbances in your audio and really frustrate you when you're in the editing room. It has happened to me. I know this, unfortunately, from my own errors. So really spend the money and invest in good cables.
Microphones. There are a lot of different kinds of microphones, and there are a variety of styles, varieties of price points. So it can be somewhat overwhelming to choose which one's right for you. Condenser microphones are best used to capture vocals and high frequencies, and they're mainly used in studios because of their detail and accuracy. Condenser microphones require a power source like phantom power. Dynamic microphones are best used for booming sounds and powerful vocals. It's the preferred microphone for live use. You also need to consider whether you're going to connect via USB or XLR. With an XLR microphone, it has 3 prongs in its connection and needs to be connected to an interface or mixer and then to your computer. With a USB microphone, it can connect directly to your computer. You don't need a mixer or any kind of interface in order to connect it up. Which type you select is a personal preference. USB microphones tend to be used by beginners because they are easier to set up, and quite often they are a lot cheaper than the XLR. And the ATR 2100 that you see on this slide, it's a dynamic USB microphone, and they sell for approximately $100 on Amazon.
That's what a lot of people use when they start podcasting, because you can use it with a USB port with your computer, and then you can upgrade later. If you upgrade later, it will also have an XLR that you can plug in. So it's a really good microphone to begin with.
And on the next slide we'll talk about headphones. What should you look for in headphones? What we recommend are the closed back over the ear headphones. Make sure that it has a headphone jack, and also get a 1/4-inch adapter. You'll need that if you upgrade your equipment with Basic DAW, which is a digital audio workstation. What's shown on this slide is a Sony MDR 7506, and it works very well. They're approximately $99 on Amazon.
Normally, I would use those headphones even for a live show like this, except it messes with my hair a bit and the way I look. Otherwise, I'm wearing those all the time if you were to catch me in front of the computer. And let's talk about recording and editing software. I know I had mentioned that that's the type of equipment that you're going to need. What's really great is if you have a Mac computer, you have GarageBand, and that will allow you to record and edit your podcast, and it's offered for free. On a PC, you usually can get for free Audacity, and it does the same thing. So these are 2 great programs that are available to you for free. If you want to do more complex editing, then we recommend the Reaper or Adobe Audition. For the Floridaville podcast, we actually use the Adobe Audition not only to record, but to edit and professionally mix the show. There are a lot of tutorials on YouTube for these types of software, so that you can learn how to use them best, I should say, and more efficiently.
Once your episode is recorded, you'll need to do mixing and editing using the software that Rosanna mentioned. If you use something like Adobe Audition, like we do, to do your recording, you can use that same software for the mixing and editing. There are a variety of free and subscription options. Maybe when you recorded and you listen back to it, you're hearing a lot of S sounds, or maybe a speaker says a lot of ums. Those can be finessed or deleted so that the sound quality overall of your podcast is better. Maybe there's coughing in the middle of your recording. You can actually take that entire section out and make a cleaner version. If you recorded different speakers on different tracks, which is ideal, this is the step where you put it all back together and make sure the tracks are equalized. You can add an intro and an outro and even music at this stage. And you can learn to finesse the music so you fade the music under the voices. This is the stage where you can insert a commercial for your business or a sponsor. This could potentially be a time-consuming step depending on the quality of your initial recording. We have our successful podcast, the Floridaville, which you can find on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. But you can recognize that we are, from an original recording to the editing step, if you could hear the difference, you would be amazed at the difference.
I can attest to that, and I can attest to what a great editor Joy is. She does a wonderful job with our show in making sure that not only I sound great on the show, but that our guests sound wonderful. So she is fantastic. So if you have any questions, please be sure if you can ask us now, or you can always email us, and we'll put our email addresses up at the end of this show. And lastly, let's talk about some of the benefits to having a podcast affiliated with your business. One is improved search engine optimization. With every podcast show, there's going to be transcripts, show notes, guest biographies, and all of that, putting it on the internet will boost your search engine optimization. It also improves you as a communicator. By doing this all the time, it improves your public speaking, it improves your communication skills. It also gives you credibility. Just like writing a book does, having a podcast will give you credibility. It also allows you to show off your expertise, which is really great and comes in handy, obviously, when you have a business. And most importantly, I think, is that when you have a podcast, it really allows you to connect with your guests, with your audience, and potential clients in a really unique way. It really deepens the relationships that you have. For example, all of us feel like we know Ellen DeGeneres or Jimmy Fallon, and that's simply because they come to our living room, through our television set. Well, imagine you in someone's ear through your podcast. They're developing that same type of relationship and familiarity with you, which is always good for business. You can develop a lot of new skills when you podcast. You can form partnerships. And probably one of the great things about podcasting is you can actually make money from it. If you have enough downloads, you can get sponsorships and ad placements, which is really great. And I always say the riches are in the niches. So find a niche and something you're passionate about to podcast, and you really can take off with it. Well, that wraps up our show. I don't see that we have too many folks commenting, but I do see that we have some of our icons up on the screen. So go ahead, Joy, take it away.
These are two different projects that we're currently working on. We already mentioned the Floridaville is our current podcast. You can listen to it on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. There are a number of podcasting platforms, as I mentioned earlier, and Floridaville is found on all of them. And you can also just go directly to the website if you want more information, thefloridaville.com. We just launched a new audio scrapbook service recently where we interview and record your life moments as told in your own words. It's called Voice Time Capsule, and it's a great way to capture significant stories or family histories, even recipes passed down by generations. We can coach you through or interview you through the recording and then professionally edit and remix it to a permanent audio format that can be saved and even shared. We can help you turn a voice time capsule into a podcast. So check out Voice Time Capsule, the website, to listen to some of our examples.
Well, that wraps up our show today. If you have any questions, please be sure to reach out to us. You can always go to our website for more information, and that's rocketshipconsultants.com. We have a tab on there for Takeoff Monday where you can hear this show. We've turned it into a podcast as well, so you can go ahead and hear some of our previous episodes. So make sure you check out rocketshipconsultants.com. And thanks so much for being here today.
Bye.